Here we go.
Coming to you live from an island off the coast of Costa Rica in the Hollywood foothills of North Carolina, it's the Confirmed Epic Podcast, the official podcast of the epicreview.com. I'm Jerry Reed, also known as Barbecue17, and joining me today is...
Gina Wiltshire, also known as Gina Beaner.
And today we have a special guest with us.
Hey, I'm Kristen, also known as Erithalia.
As always, you can email us any questions, comments, or concerns you have. Send them to thepicreview@gmail.com. Now, the real Brad Bell is not with us today, so we're going to continue soldiering on in his absence. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Hot Toys. We'll say how much we love Spider-Man and stuff. But we'll get right on into what everyone's checking out.
Yeah.
So, Gina, first, tell us a little bit about what you've been checking out this week.
I've been geeking out over Skylanders, and I know I'm kind of behind on this whole thing. It came out
About 3 years ago.
Really? It's been that long ago?
Probably 2 years ago.
2 years, yeah. So I'm really far behind. But like I said, I just got my Xbox last year, and I'm kind of catching up with these games. Awesome story here. I got this game from a friend, actually the son of a friend, who had been given this just like randomly. A family had the game, and their kids didn't want it, so they gave it to him.
That is actually pretty cool.
He didn't want it either, and so we were talking, and he knew that I was a big gamer, and he's like, well, I have Skylanders with the pad and 3 Skylanders. Do you want it? And I was like, heck yes, I want this. So I got the game, the pad, and 3 Skylanders for $15.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's a pretty good deal.
That is a great deal. You can't even get that deal at like a GameStop.
Those are
not even used.
Yeah. I mean, Skylanders are really, really popular, and I talked a little bit about this on my list of, action figure and toy trends of the next couple years, because that's always been the complaint, is that people say, video games are killing off traditional toys. Mm-hmm. Kids go right to video games. Skylanders really kind of bridges that gap.
Together.
That it's a video game, but it does rely on toys. Granted, they're just they're solid plastic figurines.
Yeah.
But they're still something neat. They're physical. They're tangible. Kids are collecting them.
And they look great. They're like great molds, great sculpts. Like the paint
really cool
jobs
looking.
are really good. Now I will say I have a Chop, and who is an undead character, and he's standing on one foot, like leaning forward with his sword, and that knee joint, it's not even a joint, it's just a plastic cast. It's really weak, so I am concerned about that.
Are you starting to see like some stress marks on it, like where the plastic's kind of white?
No, not yet. I just got him in the mail like 2 days ago, but stupid me left my figures out, and my cat got a hold of him.
Oh gosh.
And he kind of chewed on his sword a little, but I will say the plastic was hardy enough that there aren't any bite marks. It just looks kind of like he's been in battle,
that
which
sounds
kind of makes it look cooler.
That sounds like karmic justice for somebody who dropped one of my Venom arms on the ground.
I swear that was not
and
me.
And the dog got it. Okay, maybe it was Brad.
But anyway, I think we are starting to see a trend in gaming where I think we're going to see more of this, because Disney is coming out with its Infinity line, and I think we're going to see games being created so that we can merge these two worlds of collecting figures and playing video games, and we can have alternate storylines, and we can have special abilities. I just think it's awesome.
Well, let's think about the other point of it too. The other point of it is that to continue to get more content, you're paying $10 to $15 for each character.
Exactly.
It is really taking that microtransaction mentality that's present in a lot of Facebook
social networking games.
Social networking games, and going to the next level with it.
That's what I hate about those games. You have to pay money in order to really progress through them.
Yes, you are getting something. Granted, I'm a collector, so I can see the appeal. I mean,
I'm not a collector, and I love getting these things. I'm addicted to buy. I took a family photo the other night of all of my figures.
our part-time contributor Andrew had he got into Skylanders and he had some all down on his mantle, and I was looking at him and I was like, these are really cool. I'm always kind of the person that's poking around at people's toys and collectibles and stuff at their house or anything they have out on a shelf, and he's got a nice little collection of them, 12 or 13 of them or so, and he's like, oh, that's not all, and he goes and grabs a Skylanders backpack, and he opens it, and I mean, this thing was filled with these little guys, and I'm like, that's pretty awesome.
My only issue is that I think we're now in like a Series 3 or Series 4 of these figures, because you had the original Spyro's Adventure, and then they came out with Giants a couple of years later, and so the Giant figures are awesome. They're like at least 2 times bigger than the originals, but what I don't like is that they're remaking original figures in each series. So half of the figures aren't even new figures. And I'm kind of like, I've got this one that I've had from the beginning. He's at much higher levels. He's got the hat that I want him to have. He's got the upgrades that I want. I'm not going to start all over with the exact same figure. The only difference is that the second series, I believe, has like a special ability that you can use in the Giants, but it's not applicable to Spyro's Adventure.
It's probably just giving kids a chance to get characters that they see a friend has, and, that they want, because I haven't paid a lot of attention to what these are like on the secondary market, but I think some of them get up there a little bit.
Well, I've been looking at them on Amazon, and I haven't had any problems finding Series 1 stuff on Amazon. And
good.
It's at pretty much original price, which you would think it would depreciate over time, and it really hasn't. So I think I got a 3-pack, and it was roughly $30 to $35 paying shipping and handling through Amazon.
And all the storage is actually on the figure itself, which is really neat.
And it's great because it literally remembers everything. You can upgrade your powers. Oh, this is a great thing. So most characters start out with 2 attacks. There's a sort of like a power attack, like shooting bullets or throwing lava balls or something like that. And then there's kind of like a defensive yet still offensive attack and the B button. And so once you get to a certain level and you've done a certain number of upgrades, then you can choose to specify your character. You can either specify it in an A button attack or a B button attack. And so I love the fact that you can actually be like, it's just, I don't know, it's cool. I'm totally geeking out over this.
All right, well, let's move on to Kristen. What have you been checking out this week?
Lately I have started rewatching The X-Files. It's one of my absolute all-time favorite TV shows. It started back in 1993 and ran for 9 seasons.
9 seasons of The X-Files.
Impressive.
It's a long-running show.
Yeah, it was a very long-running show. It was one of the highest-rated shows.
Well,
when it was on as well.
I remember being little, and that was like what everybody talked about.
Oh,
was
exactly,
the X-Files.
Exactly. Yeah, that was what you talked about on Monday morning at school. What'd you think of X-Files?
Yeah,
it was just assumed that you were watching it. But for anyone who's not familiar with the show, it was a sci-fi show about 2 FBI agents, Mulder and Scully, who were part of. Help me out here.
Okay.
My brain.
I mean, they were investigating these FBI cases that were called the X-Files. That were cases that,
like supernatural.
Yeah, they had some kind of supernatural
cases.
or unexplainable elements, and so they never got solved. And Mulder was a brilliant criminal analyst, played by David Duchovny.
Yes.
And
he believed that, he believed in these things, right?
His sister.
His
was
sister was abducted when he was a little boy. In one of the first few episodes, it talks about it happened in the bedroom overnight. One night, they shared a bedroom in a cabin somewhere, and he remembers a bright light and a presence in the room and his sister being gone. But later on in the series, you see a flashback of it, and it's more like the parents are over at a friend's,
Yeah.
and they're playing a game and arguing, and then all of a sudden it happens.
I remember, can't remember which episode, but I remember it played.
I don't remember
They're
specifically.
talking about the space probe in that episode, one of the deep space probes.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Because we watched it
specifically.
in
I'm not
general
there yet
music
again.
class when I was in 7th grade. That episode's called Little Green Men.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And we watched that episode in general music class because it we listened to the different music samples
That is so cool.
that were on one of the space.
Mm-hmm.
Best music class ever.
General music was kind of where they sent all of us kids who we
had
musical
ability.
talent. We went to general music and watched the X-Files. That's where we went.
Mm-hmm.
So
well,
but Scully, on the other hand, she's a cynic, right? Like she's like, there's no way this is real.
Mulder, I can't talk today. Mulder is such a good agent that the Bureau is basically letting him have this hobby.
He's solved some major serial killer cases early on.
He has, and he's so they're kind of letting him do this, blah blah blah, just kind of going along with it. So they attach Scully onto it, who comes from a very scientific background. They basically assign her to the X-Files to debunk him.
Yeah.
In the hopes of closing him down.
Gotcha.
But they end up teaming up together so well.
Because everything, every episode, every case has some unexplainable aspect to it, and so she realizes there's some validity over time.
Well, basically, her field reports basically cover his butt every time. She's able to. Every show basically has this aspect of, well, it could be the supernatural thing, but, Scully's shown just enough science here that it could just be some fluke scientific thing.
Yeah.
So, it could go either way. So she's basically saving his butt every time.
Now, I never actually really watched this show because the only episode I ever caught was the one with the roaches that crawled under the
yes!
And there's actually a roach that looks like it's crawling on your TV in the
episode.
Yes.
I remember news reports of people throwing things at their TVs, and they were suing. They were suing because they wanted a new TV.
Damage their TVs.
But so I didn't ever really watch the show, but I vividly remember there being a really kind of intertwisted love thing going on.
It kind of sort of is.
Once again, you can't call spoilers on a show that's been off the air since 2000 2002, I think.
2 or 3.
They have this partnership that becomes a friendship that I think the last movie implies that there's some romantic aspect to it.
They made movies off of it?
There was a
there were
movie
2.
that came out between 2 of the seasons while the show was popular called Fight the Future.
I believe it was seasons 5 and 6.
Yeah, that movie came out in 97.
Yes, 97.
Okay, that came out in 97. And then the last movie was called The Truth Is Out There, which actually came out in 2008.
I think I remember
well
that
after
one.
the series was off the air. It was a good movie. It was a disappointing story for the only X-Files movie that we got
post-TV,
years after. It just didn't have enough, of characters from the show, or it wasn't a grand enough story. If it had been an hour episode, it would have been impressive. As a movie, it was a little disappointing.
Yeah, it just wasn't climactic enough to...
I remember one of my favorite X-Files memories is Kristen and I were first dating. Kristen's my wife.
Oh.
And Kristen and I were first dating, and we were she was telling me about the episode Humbug.
Yes.
Because I hadn't watched a lot of X-Files episodes. I watched the reruns on FX, and there was a girl I dated in high school that we watched some of them at her house when they were coming on. So we were watching the finale last season. But Kristen and I went and found a used copy of Season 2. Is that what Humbug's on? I think it's the last episode of Season 2.
I honestly couldn't tell.
Or it's in the end of Season 2. And we went and found it at the CD warehouse in Nashville.
Mm-hmm. I do remember
and
went
back and watched it. And then we watched them all. And we got married and started trying to collect all the X-Files. We have them. We have them all in DVD. Actual...
So what you're saying is X-Files actually led to your marriage.
No, that was Lord of the Rings. But it's a story for another day.
Yes.
So speaking of Lord of the Rings, kind of going off on a tangent here, I had a best friend in high school that, so a lot of the human languages that Tolkien had in his book were based off of actual real Anglo-Saxon runes, and so I had this book that had a brief it's a textbook basically of his 11 or 13 different languages, and it's a thin little
I'm looking
red
to see if
book.
it's on my shelf, but it may not. It may be in the other room.
But anyway, so it has the runes in there, and you can learn them. And so my friend and I learned them, and it got to the point we would write notes to each other. It got to the point where I could just read it. Like, I didn't have to translate it. I could just read the runes. That's how nerdy.
It's pretty impressive.
That's pretty cool, actually.
I can't do it anymore.
How many times have you watched through the X-Files, Kristen?
Not including just, catching the reruns on TV. Probably at least 3 times.
Wow.
Because I know we've watched them at least twice together.
Yeah.
So, okay. This is the 4th time then?
3rd or 4th, something
Third
like
or
that.
fourth,
Probably 4th.
All right.
I've been watching through, one of the episodes I just finished last night is, the 2nd episode of, that, has Eugene Victor Toombs in it. He's one of my favorite X-Files characters. He's in 2 episodes in the first season. He's in episode 3 and episode 21. The episodes are entitled Squeeze and Toombs. He's a character, he's a serial killer who has a very interesting body makeup. He's able to squeeze into small places or stretch out to reach things that no human should be able to reach. Often he would enter buildings through the air ducts and crawl through the vents.
So basically, he's the male version of Elastigirl.
Kind of, sort of, yeah. He was over 100 years old, and he looked like he was maybe around 35.
He's like Stretch Armstrong.
Something like that. He survived by eating the livers of his victims.
Ugh.
He would consume 5 livers and then build a cocoon and hibernate for 30 years.
Ooh.
And then he would wake up and the cycle would start over
Yeah.
again. So in the first episode, Mulder and Scully, Mulder has, researched some of the previous cycles on him, in 30-year increments, and kind of figured out most of the pieces of the puzzle. And so they have to take him down, and he ends up going to jail. And in the 2nd episode, he's released, I think, because the story is just too
ridiculous
to be believed. And so Mulder and Scully have to catch him in the act before he commits murder again. And there's actually a scene where Toombs takes himself to the hospital. He contorts his body. He dislocates his own shoulder, which is nothing to him.
Yeah.
He can do that no problem. And puts shoe prints on him and bruises on himself that people shouldn't be able to reach to do for themselves.
Yeah.
So that it looks like Mulder has attacked him to try and get back at Mulder for
Figuring it out.
figuring it out and everything. And slowing him down a bit. But it was just very interesting to watch, that kind of a thing happen.
Okay. Sounds good.
Jerry, what have you been checking out?
Well, I've been doing this thing. It's probably my favorite thing that I do on the site other than the podcast.
And your pictures.
Well, it's kind of my pictures, but it's called Barbecue Show and Tell. And the whole thing is it's kind of like, show and tell when you're a kid, that you take something that is really, cool or special to you and you show it to other people and just tell about it. And so I've been doing this now. I just finished my 7th installment last night.
I looked on the site. I think you had like 90. No, that was the podcast. It was like the 2nd most hit thing.
There was one of them that has a lot of hits on it. There's a Star Wars one, but it's really cool because for me, collecting, like I enjoy action figures. And Brad and I have talked about this. I'll buy a figure that has no significance to me. I'll go out and buy a figure that I think it's well done.
Like
it's really
the Elizabeth figure.
Yes, I haven't played BioShock Infinite yet, but I really liked the look of Elizabeth. I thought NECA did a good job on that figure. But this is a chance to talk about figures that come from my collection that have some kind of, interesting or, sentimental childhood memory to them. So what I did is I was sharing these on different forums and stuff and putting the links to our site on there. I had people contacting me and saying, hey, I had this, one guy told me about this Luke Skywalker figure that he had as a kid. And it wasn't just that it was a Luke Skywalker figure. It was that his, family had found it, like they were coming back from vacation and, I think his parents bought it for him and they said, but you can't have it until you get your grades up.
Mm.
And so, like, it was sitting in this closet at the house, and it just had really special memories attached to it. People
Yeah.
have told me some really cool stories. So on Flickr, I started a group that's called Barbecue Show and Tell, and have invited people to,
That's really
to
cool.
show their pictures
Yeah.
and to tell about, the memories and special things that are involved with them.
That's
so,
awesome.
and I, let them know if you post pictures on here, we'll use them on the site. We'll have like a community edition coming up of Show and Tell. So that's been something really fun. I've really been focusing lately on trying to pick up some of my favorite childhood lines. I kept a lot of my toys from when I was a kid. I mean, I have all my Star Wars stuff. I kept all my G.I. Joes. There are a lot of things I kept everything of, but some stuff I sold. And so the latest line that I've been working on, not just picking up what I had as a kid, but trying to complete the line, is Kenner's Aliens. Which is just one of those crazy things that in the late 80s, early 90s, these toy companies were taking these ideas, like these movies, like Predator. Okay, it's a violent rated R movie. Terminator 2, pretty violent movie, rated R. Rambo, RoboCop, Aliens. But they were making toys based on these lines that felt like Saturday morning cartoon versions of these properties. Granted, some of them had Saturday morning cartoons. There was it was called Rambo and the Forces of Freedom. I think like the beginning of the cartoon, the intro, like this Vietnamese village just blows up. And here's like Rambo and his friends, like running down. I think they were trying to save the village. I don't think they were like blowing the village up. But it was just really crazy. But it just, it's one of those things that I'm looking at these aliens, because we've been watching through all the Alien movies.
Yep.
And, looking at these toys, it's like, man, these are just, if there was an Alien Saturday morning cartoon, this is what they would have been. I mean, the aliens are like based off all these different creatures, and the characters do not look like the characters in the movie. I mean, they look a lot tougher, and like Sergeant Apone from Aliens has like a robotic arm. I mean, it's crazy. But it's really fun. I've been having a good time doing it. So if you're out there and you have some kind of childhood toy or something you've collected that has like a really awesome, just a cool story to it, please share it with us. We definitely would. I'd love to hear the story personally, first of all. And number two, I would love to put it on a community episode of Show and Tell.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, it does.
Gina, what else have you been checking out?
Okay, so I believe my review of DreamWorks movie The Croods went up today at noon.
It went up at noon Eastern.
So you can definitely read more in depth what I thought about the movie on that review. But I decided that Monday was a really weird day for me. I just felt really fuzzy and just kind of not really focused. And so I was like, okay, this means that I'm getting stressed and I need to take a me day. So I was like, what do I want to do? I decided to go and see this kids' movies. I love family films. And I get it from my dad, because my dad loves going and seeing family films because he says that he can go into it and know that he's not going to be offended by what's in it. And so his love for family films was passed on to me. And so I love like Despicable Me and, all the Pixar films. And so I saw this and I was like, man, this looks like it's going to be really great. So I went and caught a matinee by myself. And I think I was like 1 out of 6 or 7 people in there.
Yeah.
So that was great. But I was blown away by this film. I rated it an epic. And that's not necessarily an epic against, like, Star Wars or, like...
And it doesn't have to be an epic against something else.
So in its own genre.
Compared to other animated films, computer animated films like Pixar, DreamWorks, other companies,
Disney,
Fox, I guess, you're saying that it's epic. It's the top of the heap.
Yeah, and so like I said in my review, this movie, for me, bumped DreamWorks up to the same level as Pixar and Disney.
Oh, wow.
And I never
Wow.
thought that was
Yeah.
going to happen. That is how epically good this movie is. And so I know I'm setting people up to go in there with, like, really high expectations, and they're going to walk out and be like, that was the worst movie ever! Because their
Never trusting her again.
Yeah.
But, okay, so this is why I thought this movie was so epic. Do you remember going into the theater and seeing Avatar in 3D?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember that
Yeah.
feeling you got when, like, you entered into the world of Avatar, and it was just, like, mind-blowing. The cinematography and the colors and, you know, the luminescence and that kind of stuff. Did you feel that way?
I hated Avatar.
No, you didn't. Did you really?
Avatar is one of my least favorite. Yeah, I really didn't enjoy Avatar.
Oh my god.
It was beautiful. It was a beautiful movie. I did see it in 3D opening night. The 3D looked good.
Okay, so Avatar is like one of
Okay,
my
I'm
all-time
feeling
favorites.
it though. I mean,
Okay.
it was pretty cool.
I got that same feeling watching this movie,
Oh,
and
wow.
I was really surprised by that. The colors are so vivid,
Mhm.
and the creatures that they created for this prehistoric landscape was just, they were awesome, you know, and there were a couple in there that you're like, that kind of looks like an Avatar creature, you know, like,
Interesting.
Yeah.
but anyway, I guess I should kind of set up this movie a little bit. So it's about a prehistoric family called the Croods, and they live in a cave. And they used to have like 3 other families that lived with them, not lived with them, but lived close to them,
Mhm.
and they've all died. Either they were stomped on by animals, or they died from the common cold, or they starved to death, or something like that. And so the story is about...
Gina, that sounds highly offensive.
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm always curious, like, when I hear that, I'm just like, how do they handle this in, like, a family-friendly movie? Like,
Well,
Yeah.
it was approached from a very, like, humorous
Yeah.
situation.
like they're
you
just
know?
kind of walking along and clomp, here comes a big, like, dinosaur leg or something.
Yeah.
I just hit the microphone.
Yeah, I mean, it's narrated by, it's a voiced over by Eep, who is played by Emma Stone, and she is the
Okay.
daughter.
Okay.
She is the daughter of, in this family,
Oh,
she's
yeah.
the young,
Okay.
rebellious, you know, I want to explore the world around me daughter. So it's narrated by her, and she tells it in kind of like, you know, Emma Stone sort of deadpan, sort of
Yeah.
sarcastic, dry
Yeah.
humor, you know. So they pull it off really, really well. But anyway, the reason why this family has survived is because of the father. The father protects them. His name is Grug, and he's strong. And so he protects his family basically by his strength and by the rules. And that, I just air quoted that, because it's a list of drawings that are
Mhm.
on their cave wall that it sounds like, when she's talking about it, have been there for a long time. And so it's all these rules, like, the cave is safe, the darkness is bad, new things are bad, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As these are the rules that we live by in order to survive. And so her whole thing is that, yeah, we're just surviving, we're not actually living. And so one night she leaves the cave, and she's not supposed to because it's dark and it's dangerous, and she goes outside because she just wants to explore. You know, she's a young woman coming into her own, and she just wants to explore what's out there, and she sees this yellow glow, which we all recognize it as fire. You know, like,
Mhm.
it's fire being reflected off of the stones around her. And so she follows it, and she finds it in this kind of clearing above her family's cave, and there just so happens to be a man there sitting. And his name is Guy, and he is played by Ryan Reynolds. And so he is not a caveman, he's actually a Homo sapien. And so he has, like, our kind of skull, so he has a brain, and the cavemen don't really, I mean, they have brains, but he's the ideas guy.
He's
he's
for the more
he's a
developed,
little
yeah.
bit more evolutionized.
Sure. A little more evolved.
Yes.
Yes,
along the
there you
way.
go. Evolutionized. I like that.
That is a new word. It is going in our dictionary.
claiming it.
We're claiming it. You heard it here first on the Epic Review podcast. But anyway, so I mean, he kind of introduces her to this whole new world. Little throwback.
Does he
there,
sing?
He does not. There is no singing in this film, which
Okay.
is the only thing
That's
that
a
could
little-
have made it
I was
better.
gonna say, okay, that sounds a little better.
Well, from my perspective, I'm a music person,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah,
love...
you and me both. Jerry here does not really.
He just
go
doesn't
for
understand.
I don't like
Musical.
singing in my movies too much.
Um,
Unless it makes absolutely no sense, then throw some singing
Yeah.
in.
So Guy tells Eep basically that the end is coming. The world is ending, and he is trying to run to safety to a really high mountain to get to tomorrow. And so she brings him back to her family, and they meet, and the father doesn't trust him, and he's like, no, we need to be in the cave. The cave is safe. That's how we've survived.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're all headed back to the cave, and the ground starts to shake and open up, and this huge sheet of rock just comes, like, it looks like an arrowhead, basically, just comes and falls straight through their
Oh,
cave.
wow.
And so now they can't go back to the cave. So what do? They have to press forward
Okay.
to safety. And so it's all about their journey to getting to safety, which they call tomorrow.
Do they do this in a cart that they pedal with their feet now?
No, they don't. But they do go on a really long walking journey, and that entire sequence is really funny.
Okay.
So this movie is... I had multiple laugh out loud moments. Now, I kind of like cheesy humor, so it might have been more funny to me than someone who doesn't like cheese.
Do you like queso-y humor?
I
Okay. You like cheesy humor. Go
like
on.
cheesy humor.
Okay.
But one of the major things about this film is that it's not so much a story about love between a young man and a young woman, although that is in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually more of a father-daughter story.
Interesting.
And we don't see a whole lot of father-daughter stories where that is like the main focus. Now we have movies like The Little Mermaid, which is a conflict between a father and a daughter. And I would say that's the closest thing related to this.
Yeah.
You've got like Mulan. And there's a couple of films that have a father-daughter element in there. But it's not the main focus. But in this movie, it is the main focus. And so we see this overprotective father who dearly loves his family and is kind of being pushed out of the role of protector because his rules aren't working in this new world anymore. It's now Guy's ideas that are keeping the family safe. And so he's struggling with, I'm losing my purpose in my family.
Okay.
And then she is kind of coming into her own and discovering, yeah, Dad can be frustrating sometimes, but truthfully, our family really needs him, and he is a very important part, and I love him. And I will say that this movie brought me to tears. I was literally
Aw.
crying in the theater. I have a great relationship with my father,
Okay.
and I'm very much a daddy's little girl. So this movie really spoke to me in that. It was just, I would recommend it to anybody who loves family films.
Brought you to tears.
Brought me to tears. It was great.
I don't remember last movie brought me to tears was The Dark Knight Rises. And I'm not joking about that.
Really? You
No.
cried?
Well, I thought he
Yeah,
was.
so did I.
I
Yeah,
thought he was
I think
dead.
I did too.
Yeah,
I thought he was
yeah,
dead at
I think
first.
so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it sounds so. If you like cartoon movies or prehistoric families or strong father-daughter elements,
Yeah, and
then-
it's
Cheesy
not-
humor.
It's not really kiddie. You know, it's not
It's not
over the
sh-
top, really targeting young
Mhm.
kids. It's truthfully targeting the parents that are in the
Okay.
audience.
Sounds good. Well, last thing I'll talk about is I've been checking out a little bit, and I think Gina's going to be doing a full review of this at
Yes,
some
I
point.
will.
But is the board game Zombicide by Guillotine Games.
Oh my gosh,
Uh-huh.
This
so
game
great.
has been out for a little while. They've just finished the Kickstarter campaign for Zombicide 2 and a number of the expansions. But Zombicide is a cooperative game. It's for about six players, although you can play it by yourself with any number between 1 and 6.
Yeah.
And every player takes on a different character and is trying to accomplish different missions in an urban environment. If you've ever played the game Zombies that came out quite a few years ago by Twilight, I think it's Twilight Creations.
Twilight Sparkle?
Not Twilight
Not
Sparkle.
Twilight Sparkle.
Calm down, Gina.
I
By
just got really
Very
excited
different.
By
there.
Twilight Creations, it reminds me of a little bit of Zombies, but with better game mechanics
Yeah.
to it.
Yes.
The game mechanics are really strong. They're really solid. There is some randomness to the game in terms of when you roll the dice, I mean, obviously that's always random for attacks.
Yeah.
And
with spawning.
And with the way zombies spawn,
Yeah.
but there's not cards that are like, you have to move 5 spaces, or you have to do this, or you have to do that. It's a really strong game because it does make your group function as a team.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's going for the same goal. And one of the things that I hear from a lot of people playing it is that they haven't played a lot of team-based games like this.
Yes, that's exactly it.
That's exactly. Yeah.
I was trying to think. There were a couple team-based games I've played, but never one that had this strong of a dynamic to it, where everybody's working together, everybody's offering something.
Well, and I like that it creates, because of the team feeling, it literally creates team dialogue for each person's turn.
Yes,
it's my turn, but I'm going to make sure that I talk about what I'm thinking about doing with the entire team, and we strategize.
Yes, exactly.
About, okay, should I do this? Or if we do this, how can that play out? And I loved that, because I'm extremely competitive. And so most of the time I get to the point where I hate playing a game because I'm losing.
Yeah.
But with this one, I didn't experience that at all.
Everybody's winning or losing together.
Yeah.
And you're working on it as a group. It reminds me a little bit of the feeling that you get when you have a good D&D game going.
Yes.
But in this one, the goal's a little more focused, because D&D, you're always struggling with, you might have a group that 4 or 5 people in a group are really focused on, dungeon exploring and combat, and you got 1 or 2 other people over here who are like, no, I want to do more role playing.
Yeah.
And so you're still always kind of trying to balance everything.
Yeah.
This one, everybody has a very clear goal, and everyone's working together towards it. So it's really fun. We'll probably talk more about Zombicide, especially when Zombicide 2 comes out.
Yeah,
but Gina's
going to
be giving us a good review, and Andrew had chipped in to get Zombicide 2 through Kickstarter, and we're going to see about him maybe trying to order the whole big set.
Oh, that'd be
so that I can get in on it, because I got in a little too late. So, but I really want a set. So.
Yeah, if I had known about it, I would have given to Kickstarter just so I could have gotten it.
Yep. Well, I think that's about all we've been checking out this week. Now, Brad is our news guy. Brad's our news collector, so there's not a lot of epic news this week. But Kristen brought up a really great news story. Kristen, will you share that with us?
Sure. Steve Niles, who he wrote 30 Days of Night and several other comics.
Simon Dark. He worked on the Suicide Girls comic.
Yes.
He's done some other stuff too. Criminal Macabre.
But he posted on his website that in light of the bombing at the Boston Marathon, he wanted to say thank you to those who have given blood to help the victims. So if you're coming out to Boston Comic-Con, he says, quote, "Come and see me this weekend and show me your blood donation sticker or proof of cash donation, and I'll give you a free comic. I'll sign it too if it's one I wrote."
Okay.
End quote.
Really cool. I've actually met him twice. 2 years. 2 years at HeroCon. The first year, completely forgot my copy of 30 Days a Night. He signed my program flyer, and then I went and bought his comic adaptation of the Richard Matheson novel I Am Legend, which is a great kind of vampire, kind of, it's much better.
Now, is that what the film was based off of?
Yeah, the film was based off
See, I love the film, so I bet I would love
it's much better. I Am Legend is much better. What's actually weird is that I Am Legend was made into a movie 3 times.
Really?
Yes.
The original one has Vincent Price in it, and it's called The Last Man on Earth.
Oh.
It's the best version.
Okay.
The second version is the craziest version, and it's called Omega Man with Charlton Heston. It's a little weird, but it's got this kind of funky 70s vibe to it. The Will Smith one was good. I Am Legend. But I think they changed too many things to it. It's a good movie in and of itself. Yeah. But it's a poor adaptation of I Am Legend.
So you got to think of it as 2 separate things.
But it's the only one that actually used the title.
Yeah.
So, because the whole thing is, why is it called I Am Legend? Does it make any sense in the context of that movie?
Well, in the movie, I would think that he's called I Am Legend, or it's called I Am Legend because he is the one that created the vaccine. That is his legend.
That's what you would think.
That's what you would think. in the book, the Robert,
No spoilers.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, this
No,
book
it's okay.
came out like years ago. The main character,
Well, I want to read it.
he is the one who terrifies the creatures. He's the one who's been hunting them down for years and killing them. And when they finally get him, he's like, you'll get rid of me, but your kids will always be terrified of me. I'll be their boogeyman.
Yeah.
I'm their legend. And you'll never get rid of me.
Man, that sounds so cool.
Oh, it's
now,
great.
I gotta read
it's
this
great.
now.
So jumping back, he signed my copy of I Am Legend, that the comic adaptation that he worked on, and then the second year I managed to bring my copies of Simon Dark. I don't know if you're familiar with Simon Dark. It's
not
a
at all.
Gotham character. Kristen, you would love Simon Dark. It has a very, I feel a very Tim Burton-ish vibe to it. Simon Dark is this young man that was...
Are you talking about like Batman's Gotham?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. He is another anti-hero that's kind of in Gotham that he died, but he came back. And he's kind of
that's hard. How do you introduce a new hero into...
He doesn't play into the Batman universe much. He's kind of his own character, and Gotham's just the backdrop of where he's at. It's sort of a horror comic, but it also is more of a darker superhero comic.
Now, is this like supernatural superpowers sort of thing, or is it more like realistic, like Batman is?
It's more supernatural,
Okay.
supernatural.
So this is like the weird, crazy side of Gotham
Yes.
that we don't
Yeah.
necessarily see.
This is the darker, weirder side of Gotham that, like, kind of like in Grant Morrison's Batman Gothic and some of those books where Batman does confront actual, supernatural beings and stuff. But it's really good. I have him sign some stuff there, especially 30 Days a Night, which is probably my favorite thing that Steve Niles has worked on, and what he's most well known for. So, Steve, thanks for helping out, and getting people involved in, donating blood and doing things for all of the victims of that attack. The other thing in news that I have, and I'm going to consider it nerdy news. The Canadian progressive rock band Rush is finally being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow.
They have been eligible for 13 years.
Wow.
And fans have been just aggravated every year because Rush has not been inducted. They are finally being inducted. And of course, Rush is really popular. People joked that, while Rush played rock music, they were, rather than having traditional rock fans, they appealed to the kids who were playing D&D. I mean, they have very, very sci-fi, very fantasy-based lyrics. I mean, they have a lot of Tolkien references in their lyrics and stuff, and literary references.
Do they have kind of like a sci-fi sort of sound to them? Like, I'm thinking of Angels and Airwaves.
There's some, like,
that have...
synths and
Yeah,
stuff.
a lot of synthesizer. You gotta listen to Rush. You'll have, you can't even really begin to explain their music. Some people really hate Rush. People who don't like Rush are, like, really passionate about their hatred for Rush.
Yes.
People who love Rush just don't care. I mean,
they just love it.
It's Rush.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was really cool. That was kind of a... They're definitely kind of one of those nerd, bands that have appealed to more of a nerd crowd. And my favorite is always there's a Fry line from Futurama where he's talking about having like one of his nights back in the 80s, and he's like, I've got a 2-liter of Shasta, a roll full of quarters, and a Rush mixtape. Time to hit the arcade, or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
that's funny.
I don't have any other much. Once again, Brad kind of collects all that, so I don't have a lot of news tonight.
We're missing him tonight.
Yeah, but I think a lot of our news is going to come out because we're doing something different tonight. We didn't really review a movie this week. Gina saw the Croods.
Well, our plan was to go see Jurassic Park.
And plans fell. We ended up playing Zombicide,
Which, I'm okay with that.
And part of me was I wanted to see Jurassic Park on the big screen. Part of me, too, was realizing for the cost that Chris and I would have paid to go see Jurassic Park in 3D, we actually could have went and bought all 3 of the Jurassic Park movies on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh,
well, see, for me, though, I wasn't old enough when it came out into theaters. So I've never seen it in theaters. Yeah. So I would love
you
to
owe it
still
to yourself to see it. You owe it to yourself to see it in theaters.
It's great on the big
I just don't want to go by myself.
Okay.
It was the first movie. It was the first movie that I remember going to as a kid that was just packed. I mean, my parents took me the weekend it came out. I mean, we went and saw it on the Saturday, not Friday. and we went to Saturday matinee showing, and I mean, it was absolutely packed.
Yeah.
I mean, we barely could sit together.
Yeah.
And I just remember when that started, I mean, the first scene when the raptor's squealing, you know, as they're transferring it from the cage.
Yes.
That will forever be
Was-
a nightmare.
I mean, I was sitting there and I'm like terrified, but at the same time, it's that, for me, it was a kind of terrified where I'm also falling in love.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, you're as a kid, you're watching dinosaurs and like you're terrified, but you're like, I don't want this to end because it's just so magical.
Yeah.
There's something about it. I mean, it's one of those things where, for me as a kid, there were definitely things that were terrifying, but at the same time, they became, like, important to you. Like,
Yeah.
things like the aliens from Aliens or,
Mhm.
you know, Predator. I mean, those things are scary, but at the same time, they're also super cool, and you get into them. This is not like your, you know, your standard, like, ghosts or serial killers or something like that.
It was like, it was almost a realistic fear because you're like, this could actually happen. Like, we could have the science to bring these, you know?
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
will say that Jurassic Park, even though I never saw it in theaters, is the very first film that I remember seeing it as, like, an adult film.
Uh-huh.
I saw it as a child at home, and it really freaking me out. Like, it was probably my first, like, I'm really scared of this movie. And so I completely identify with what you were saying, because it's not necessarily that I fell in love with it. As an adult, after reading the books, I did. I loved the books. But it was more like those iconic lines, like,
yes.
You didn't say the magic word.
I'm pretty sure that my...
Or hold on to your butts.
I'm pretty sure that my dad and I read the book together before we saw the movie.
Mhm.
We at least got most of the way through it before the movie came out. Because we would often read, like, those type of books together and stuff.
I actually think the book is better than the movie.
It is a hard call for me, but it is a movie. As much as I love Jurassic Park, I would not be opposed to someone someday
remaking
it with bringing in some of those elements
closer to the book.
If you watch I like Jurassic Park 3 a little better than Lost World. None of them measure up quite to the original. 3 has some better scenes in it than Lost World, definitely. But they did take some of those elements. To me, the scariest part of the book is the scene where Grant and the kids are in this raft. And they're on this, they're trying to get into this river, but they have to get into, like, this kind of little lake first. And it's a rubber raft, and the T-Rex comes into the water and is, like, just kind of cut. All they can see is the top of its head, and its tail is turning and churning the water, like propelling it forward, swimming. And you're like, oh my gosh, they're in this raft, and this massive thing is below them. That just freaked me out. I'm always freaked out being in bodies of water, especially, like, lakes and stuff like that.
So it played on a previous fear that you had.
No, like, it probably made
that
that
made
fear.
it. Oh, wow.
I mean, no matter what it is, and movies like, Lake Placid or the scene in Resident Evil.
I refuse to
The
watch
scene
this.
in Resident Evil 4 when you're in the lake and the giant creature just comes up from below you. Always freaks me out. I mean, I like water skiing, but I hate falling off because I'm just sitting there like, oh
my
gosh,
gosh, something's
what's
gonna
under
get
the
me.
water?
Now, I remember just being so freaked out to go see Jurassic Park in the theaters because all I'd heard from, I was still relatively young.
I was younger than you, and I saw it just fine opening weekend.
Well, yeah, but you came from us lately. You have more of a love of, being scared.
I'm also known as a man's man.
Me. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, I just remember being really freaked out to go see this in the theaters because everyone that I had who had seen it before me just kept saying, it's so suspenseful. It's so suspenseful. Oh my gosh, that movie was just so suspenseful. And I'm sitting there thinking, what the heck happens in this movie? Can I handle this? I mean, I remember, like, telling my parents, I don't want to go in. I don't want to go into the theater. And they calmed me down and we went in. And, obviously I survived and I was kind of like, it was okay. I don't think I want to ever watch this again. And it's one of my favorites now.
Yeah.
I mean, I
think the scariest...
I just needed to, I guess, just take a little time and kind of get over it.
Yeah, and grow up a little. Yeah,
maybe that was it.
I know.
But
But, I mean, that's what it was for me. It was growing up and realizing it's just a movie. It's not going to affect me. But I think the scariest part for me is, what is the female doctor's name?
Dr. Ellie Sattler.
Sattler.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's when she, like, all the power has gone out, and she's going down in that little tunnel
Yes.
to turn and the arm falls down, and she's like,
Samuel L. Jackson's arm.
and she pulls it out, and it's like just,
Yeah.
it's
Severed
like,
Mr. Arnold, and like it turns out it's just like a stub.
yeah. Oh my god. Oh, it freaks me
Yeah,
out just to
definitely
talk
for
about
sure.
it.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool.
Now,
cool
one
scene.
nifty little fact: the Joseph Mazzello's the actor who played Timmy
Yeah.
in Jurassic Park. He's actually in 2 movies this summer.
Oh.
He's
He
in
was in 2 movies that came out within a week of each other.
yes. He with Jurassic Park 3D, and he also has a minor role in G.I. Joe Retaliation.
He was Agent Mouse in G.I. Joe
Yes.
Retaliation. Yeah, that's correct. He has an action figure based off of.
Yes, he
So
does.
for
I
one
want
of-
an action figure based
For
off
one
of
of my
me.
pictures, for one of my pictures that week when I reviewed the set that he
Mm-hmm.
came in, I put him up in a tree, and my caption said,
Yes.
after his previous incident, Tim became the best tree climber there ever was. So
Oh, and I hate it when he gets electrocuted.
And we're back in
on
the tree again.
Tim, the human piece of toast.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's go on to what we're going to do this week. Since we did not see a movie, we're not really going to review a movie. We're going to talk about some of our upcoming movies. Brad posted a top 10 list of the top 10 most anticipated summer movies.
Which he called our top 10, and I would like to state that it does not speak for all of us on the Epic Review team.
Well, and that's part of the thing, is it doesn't speak for us. So I'm going to read off Brad's list, and then we're going to take turns going through our list and kind of talking about, what's on the list. So let's read through Brad's list.
Okay.
If that movie is on your list, we'll just go ahead and throw it out there, kind of where it's at in comparison and stuff.
Okay.
And then anything that was left off of your list, from Brad's list, we'll go through and share.
I'm sure I've got several on
Okay.
my list that aren't on his.
So let's look at Brad's list for most anticipated movies, and let's count them down, because that's the way he did them.
Okay.
Number 10 was The Wolverine, the sequel to X-Men Origins Wolverine,
And I
starring
can't-
Hugh Jackman. Comes out July 26th. It's directed by James Mangold.
Yeah, I can't believe that. I mean, like, I'm really excited about this film. It was
Me too.
actually my number 4.
Me too.
And go, girl.
High five.
Number 4, really?
no, yeah.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
my number 6. My
Well,
number
see,
6.
I love. When I was a kid, I was watching the animated version of
Mhm,
X-Men,
yes.
and Wolverine was one of.
Gina, you would have loved my friend Freddie that I talked about in my thing the other night.
My number 1, of course, is Gambit. I love Gambit, but Wolverine was my number 2. I love
always
the
liked
character.
Did you
Wolverine.
like how he was portrayed in X-Men Origins, though? I didn't
Gambit?
like Gambit in Origins too much.
Not particularly.
I liked...
He wasn't like snarky romantic
Yeah.
enough for me.
Exactly.
Like he just didn't.
Just,
and I don't know if it was a writing.
Bland, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a writing
Origins,
thing.
I thought
or...
Origins was a good story and a good movie.
And you can't have Gambit without Rogue. They have to be
Yeah.
together.
Well, they have to meet later on. This was an Origins thing, but I think the problem for me was Origins took some really great X-Men and Marvel characters. Deadpool.
Uh-huh.
Deadpool is an amazing, clever, hilarious character. They had Ryan Reynolds playing him. It was probably a very good person to play Deadpool, and they killed it.
I know.
They killed it. That'd be like having a character, somebody playing the Joker and never letting them really open their mouth
Yes.
or be on
Yes.
screen.
I mean, he gets like maybe 10 minutes.
10 minutes
Yeah.
of
talking
being
time.
snarky.
and he
yeah.
comes back as Weapon 11, which really made very
Yeah.
little sense. Even in the context of the movie, it wasn't
I
a good
mean,
idea.
Well, I get what they were going for because you got this mutant hater that like creates the ultimate mutant in order to kill mutants, you
Yeah.
know.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Ryan Reynolds fan, and so I did not like.
I wish
how
I wish Marvel Studios would get the rights to Deadpool back. But I bet they're
Mm.
tied into those X-Men
More than
rights.
likely.
Yeah.
But hopefully
Too bad.
they'll somehow just, there's Deadpool video game coming out, so maybe we'll see a Deadpool movie.
Do we know if Ryan Reynolds is going to play his voice?
I have no idea, but I doubt
would
it. But I
totally
don't know.
doubt
I
it
would
at this
totally
point.
buy that game.
So we've got Wolverine. We all picked it up higher. I put it at number 6 on my list. Brad's talked about this. I agree. Hugh Jackman is Wolverine for me now.
Yes.
He's been playing that character for so long in so many movies. If I had to pick one character that if I had to pick 5 characters that I could bring over from other studios into the Marvel Studios, so they would fit in Avengers continuity, Wolverine would be one of my choices.
Yeah.
So that he could be like in the Secret Avengers or, any of those other teams.
Yeah. And, interesting thing, I was watching an interview with Hugh Jackman, and it was about Les Mis. But he was like, he had just finished Les Mis, but he was beginning on the new Wolverine movie, and he was talking about, I had to lose my muscle tone basically in order to play Jean Valjean, and now I'm having to
gain
it all back. And he's done this this is his 4th or 5th movie playing Wolverine, and so he's had to do this 5 times,
he's been in 3 of the X-Men movies.
And then
he has a cameo. He has a cameo in First Class.
Yeah.
And then he was in Origins Wolverine, and then the Wolverines.
Yeah.
That's sixth time he's played this character.
Beef up 6. I can't imagine what his body has gone through.
But he's been in a lot of movies where he's played muscular
most
characters.
Of the time he's probably pretty
rarely,
buffed up.
yeah.
And for me, the most iconic Wolverine moment is in X-Men 1, the original X-Men, where he is in Professor Xavier's school, and the agents have come after the students, and he jumps up from the balcony.
That's 2.
It's 2?
That's X2.
Yes,
Okay.
that's 2.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
X-Men
that's
United.
still my most iconic.
Even
though it's in X2.
That's definitely the best of the X-Men movies. I think.
You think so?
I think X2 is definitely the best.
Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah. All right, well, let's jump on. Brad put as number 9 the Guillermo del Toro giant, alien monsters versus mechs flick, Pacific Rim, which comes out on July 12th. And I'm curious where you guys put this, because this is my number 1 movie that I want to see. Guillermo del Toro is one of those, there are some folks that are writers or directors or creators that just, you feel like you could just sit down with them and you could talk infinitely because you enjoy the same things. Mike Mignola is one of those writers that just love everything he produces. Guillermo del Toro is one of those directors that I've just loved every movie that he's put out. I'm always so intrigued. And so Pacific Rim to me looks awesome. It's like going to be, I think it's taking everything that people love about Godzilla, everything that people love about giant mech movies or mech cartoons and things.
Power Rangers.
Well, yeah, like Power
Stuff like
Rangers
that.
or Voltron. But turning it into something kind of darker and serious yet still fun.
Yeah.
So this is my number 1 movie. I am looking forward to this. I don't know how big of a hit it's going to be, but with Guillermo del Toro, I've never seen anything he's done that I've been disappointed in. So I think it's going to be really good, and I'm curious what you guys think about it.
I absolutely agree with you. I put it at number 6, and it honestly, I'm not even sure it would be on my list if Guillermo del Toro wasn't attached to it.
Yeah, it actually didn't make my list at all. There are other things that I'm more interested in.
Okay. I'm excited. I think it's just going to be a fantastic movie, and I'm really excited. I mean, probably a lot of it is because of the strength of Guillermo del Toro. I mean,
Yes.
most things he puts out, he puts out like independent movies like Pan's Labyrinth and stuff, but then he can headline blockbusters like Hellboy 2. Movies that studios didn't necessarily bank on as their big tentpole films, Blade 2, but they did really well and gain a really prominent following.
Now,
So
I will say that the special effects in that movie do look pretty dang awesome.
Yeah.
And of course, Ron Perlman's in the movie, who's worked with Guillermo del Toro on Hellboy, so
Yeah,
and
you
on
can't go wrong
Kronos
there.
as well, the Mexican vampire film that del Toro did early on, which is a great movie.
The only thing that comes to mind when you say Kronos is The Incredibles, and that was the Syndrome's computer password.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, you need to watch Kronos. It's a great vampire movie. Really, really good. So Brad put it as 9. I put it as 1. Kristen has it at 6. Gina doesn't even have it on her
It's
list.
not on my list.
All right.
What's number 8?
Number 8 is, for Brad, The Hangover Part 3, May 24th, directed by Todd Phillips. The Wolfpack is back.
Oh, Brad, what were you thinking?
I know.
Well, let's look at it from a perspective. Hangover 1 and Hangover 2, two of the most successful comedies
They
of all
are.
time.
But
They
it's it,
They're
prominent.
it targets a specific kind of humor
It very
and a
much
specific
does.
kind of person. And personally, for me,
well,
it just
but those two
doesn't-
things
Yeah,
don't-
I'm just not that.
those
person.
aren't exclude. Those are two different things. Though we're saying how popular and prominent it's been,
Yeah.
and you're saying target a specific person, but the box office records don't show that. That this is a pretty widespread thing. That this is a pretty, I mean, if those
I think
massive
it's a bro
box,
movie, though.
it definitely is a
Yes,
bro
absolutely.
movie. I can't say I've talked to anybody that said they haven't enjoyed the Hangover movies. I know a lot of people didn't like the Hangover 2 as much.
Mhm.
Some people seem to think that the series is worn out, but they've kind of said, and I've heard it since the beginning, there were going to be 3 of them focusing on each of the characters. I have never seen them. A friend of mine was getting married. We were trying to track the movie down to watch. We never could find it.
That's right.
I don't remember. I think we ended up just watching Arrested Development episodes.
I believe you're right.
Oh, so
my
much better
understanding is
thing to
that's
do.
what you-
Have you seen it? Is it the first Hangover?
The Hangover. Have I seen? I know I've seen the second one. I'm not sure if I've seen the first one. I mean, it's okay. From what I can tell, it's basically the same story rehashed
I think
in a
that's
different location with
Yeah.
a different rearrangement of the group of the
Yeah.
wolf pack. So
I think that's kind of the point they went with, and
yeah.
and of course with comedies, comedies, that's usually what happens is you.
And it's
Yeah.
not my line of humor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
same here.
very.
I am the least likely to go and try out a comedy.
Yeah.
Which is weird, but I'm least likely. I mean, I like comedy blended in with other things. Like I love horror comedies.
Yeah.
Horror comedy, I'm probably gonna check it out. But comedies in and of themselves is probably one of the
You
genres.
love those rom-coms, don't you?
Yes.
Oh yes, that is.
Okay, that's
I know
definitely-
all of those.
That's definitely the genre I'm least likely to go.
I don't even watch.
And
too
then
many of those.
there's like the family films, and then there's regular comedies.
Yeah.
Probably most likely.
I
So
gotcha.
all right, so nobody else even had on their list.
Nope.
No.
All right. Number 7 was White House Down, the Roland Emmerich film starring Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx that comes out on June 28th. This is the second or third, depending if you count G.I. Joe Retaliation,
Mhm.
taking over the White House film this year. Where's
Yes,
everybody
yes.
got on their list?
That's probably the exact reason why it's not on my list. I hate it when someone comes out with a great idea and then every single movie studio has to do something similar
Well,
to it.
it happens every year.
Yeah,
I
we
know.
see it all the
Yeah.
time.
I know, and so I just I get to the point where I'm like, I'm specifically not going to see this movie because you're copying someone else's idea. Can we
And-
not be original here, people?
It's tough to tell. Did anybody have it on their list? I did not.
No.
I had it at number 10.
I
Okay,
did
it was
not.
your number 10, right on the
Yeah.
edge. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it looks good. I mean, it looks like it'll be a solid movie. Roland Emmerich, I mean, let's think about Independence Day, pretty iconic movie.
Yeah,
Yes.
good movie.
Day After Tomorrow was a pretty good
I
movie.
didn't see it.
Okay, pretty good movie.
It was good. That was one
It's
of our
gonna be a
first dates, actually.
It was pretty early on. You're right.
Oh, that's 2 O's you've gotten.
It's
through.
he does pretty big, iconic, patriotic disaster movies.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, it's coming out June 28th. It's gonna be out there for 4th of July.
Yeah,
It's gonna do pretty well.
probably.
Channing Tatum is an actor that I like him more and
He might
more.
be the only reason why I go see
I
it.
See,
like
that's one of the downers for me.
Oh,
I'm
really?
just not a big fan of his at all.
I didn't like him when first thing I ever saw him in was the original G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I thought he was really bland.
Yes.
He was very bland.
That was kind of early in his career,
It was.
though.
It was. And so now that I saw him at the beginning of Retaliation, which has been a couple years, he was very likable in
Yeah.
He
the
was, yeah.
the scenes that he
He's
had in Judge
definitely come into
Retaliation.
his own.
So I'm
I believe
thinking,
so.
okay, we'll give it a try, but it's not on my list. It's
Yeah.
definitely not on my top 10.
It's not on mine either.
And it's on Kristen's 7.
no
10.
10.
10. 10. It's on Brad's 7.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's go on to number 6, one that I think we're all going to have higher than Brad.
Probably.
Yes.
The J.J. Abrams film, starring basically everybody under the sun, including Benedict Cumberbatch, Star Trek Into Darkness, comes out May 17th.
Yeah, my number 2.
My
You're number 2.
High five again.
We have almost the same list.
That's my
We need to
number.
hang out more often.
It
We
is
should.
my number 4. Star
Okay.
Trek Into Darkness. Definitely one of the ones I'm most looking forward to.
Yes.
Well, see, for me, like the first Star Trek
Mhm.
was like my really first introduction into a really big sci-fi film other than Star Wars. Like I was born into the Star Wars
Mhm.
area. I'm not a big fan of like Armageddon and those kind of movies.
Only
but
Brad's
this-
a fan of Armageddon.
But this was seriously like my first this is an epic space movie that can almost contend with Star Wars.
Yeah.
So I have that energy and that excitement moving into this one, and I am really stoked for it.
Me too.
Once again, I like Star Trek. I am a fan of the original series. That is Star Trek to me. I love the original series. This is the best of both worlds, that it has the original series, and I thought all of the actors did a pretty good job. Obviously, Chris Pine had the hardest. I think
Yeah.
Chris Pine had the
Yeah.
hardest
Yep.
job.
Well, it's
Because-
such an iconic character.
Yes,
I mean,
it
come
is.
on.
That's-
I mean, is there? Yeah. There's a difference between Shatner and Kirk, but Shatner is just such a larger than life actor.
Yes.
And I think Chris Pine did a good job.
He
He
did,
made
he
a
did.
likable Captain Kirk. He took the character elements there and did something. But some of the other characters, Zachary Quinto was an excellent Spock.
Yes,
Oh my
he
gosh, I
was.
love
But
him.
The best,
Mhm.
I think the best casting in the whole movie was McCoy.
Oh.
Yeah, he was very
McCoy
well
was
cast.
Carl Urban as
Mhm.
McCoy was like, my gosh, was he like channeling DeForest Kelly, or was he like DeForest
Uh-huh.
Kelly's long lost like son or something? I mean, I thought he did an awesome job, and all they've done with this movie is look like they've amped things up
Yeah.
and added Benedict Cumberbatch, who is a
Yes.
fantastic actor.
Have they
So
said who
excited
he?
about that.
Because I
We-
know it
we-
was for a while. It was really secretive.
Yeah, it's still secretive. We
Okay.
have no clue who he is. I mean, obviously, most people think he's going to be Khan, who was one of the,
Yeah.
one of
like
the most
Wrath of
the
Khan.
the most
Yeah.
iconic
Yeah.
enemies of the original series, who headlined probably the best of the Star Trek movies.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Star
most
Trek II: The
people's
Wrath
favorite.
of Khan. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
pretty great movie.
Yeah.
Even some of the scenes in the trailer, there's a scene where Spock is, putting his hand up against
Mhm.
some glass with Kirk on the other side. Seems to mirror the
Yeah,
most
mirror
iconic
that,
scene
yes.
from
Yep.
Star Trek: Wrath of Khan,
Yes.
where Spock is killed.
Now, I am very relieved we have not seen any brain control
I hope we
bugs.
get
Because that freaked me. I still to this day can't sleep without
And-
my ears covered up.
And the
Oh,
Wrath
it
of
drives
Khan,
me
yeah,
crazy.
Khan
That
puts these little
freaked
brain
me out.
control slugs in people's ears,
Ooh.
which I have a little replica of one that is
Yes,
like
he
the
does.
size. And yeah,
Has he ever tormented you with it?
Oh no, never.
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 Now,
So-
I will say that I'm very glad that Chris did not have the Captain Kirk voice.
Yes.
and
And
I
you
was
know,
glad that didn't
that
show
is
up.
one of the things. I'm glad they didn't try to do that, because that would have
That
came
would
off.
be going a little too far.
But-
Awful.
But everybody else, like Carl Urban, matching kind of the way
Yes.
DeForest Kelly, put
Just the
himself out there.
mannerisms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was perfect.
Yes.
That was perfect. So Brad's got it at 6. I've got it at 4. You both have it at 2.
Mhm.
Okay.
Whoop, whoop.
Number 5. Brad has Kick-Ass 2. Comes out August 16th. Directed by Jeff Waldo. Okay.
Why is Kick-Ass 2? Why is he so much more excited about Kick-Ass 2 than Star Trek? I don't.
know.
Or Wolverine.
I don't know. But
I
listen,
don't get it.
they've
Yeah.
added Jim Carrey into the cast,
Yeah.
playing a
That's
character.
kind of exciting. I like
And-
that.
I mean, once again, I'm thinking of a lot of the good character roles Jim Carrey has played recently, and he always does a fantastic job. I mean, the
Yes.
man is a really good actor when it comes to it. So we're probably going to get a really intriguing
That's true.
Oh, he's
comedic.
He's got a lot of
character.
charisma. He can bring
Yeah.
so much.
I mean,
into
I'm
a
just
role.
looking at the poster right now with Jim Carrey. He's got a gold
What a
tooth.
great facial expression.
Yeah,
I
he's
know,
got
look
this
at
kind
that.
of lopsided grin. He's got stubble. I mean, look it up.
It is a really good. That's very iconic.
I know
Yes.
Brad's a big fan of the Mark Miller comic series there, and so I don't have it on my list.
I have it at 9.
You have it at 9.
I don't have it on mine. I saw the first one. I thought it was okay. It was an enjoyable film,
Mhm.
but I mean, if we go and see it to review it,
Yeah.
I'll go and see it.
I will
but-
absolutely go and see it.
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely
I'm
go and see
going.
it. It probably should be at my 10, but I felt the need to put one comedy on my list. Just for variety. But honestly, this is probably my number 10. But I've got another 10 on my list. So, yeah, I'll say it. Yeah. Okay. That was non-committal. But I am looking forward to it. But we're not looking forward as much as Brad. All right. Number 4, Brad has the Seth Rogen directed comedy, his directorial debut, This Is the End, on July 12th. Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Jonah Hill, Seth Rogen, James Franco, Danny McBride, Jay Baruchel, Michael Cera, Jason Segel, Paul Rudd. Practically anybody who has headlined a major comedy in the past 5 years is in this movie.
Yep.
Brad's got it number 4. Where's everybody else have it?
It's not on my list.
Not on my list.
Not on your list.
Nope.
It is not on my list either. It is going to have to be a movie that I'm going to have to go and see because I've seen some movies with some of those folks in it.
Mhm.
I like some of them, but I'm really going to have to see the movie and it be really, really, really good for me to enjoy it.
It looks kind of like a bromance.
So
Just saying.
I will say the best part of the trailer for me, probably the number one reason I'll just watch it is everyone's playing themselves in this movie, which does sound really funny.
And it's something that hasn't really ever been done that I know
I can't
of.
think
Not
of
as far
many
as I know.
movies other than like a Saturday Night Live skit
Yeah.
or something where people are truly playing themselves. Basically, Emma Watson just like breaks into their apartment with like she got an axe?
I think so.
And she robs them of all their food and stuff.
But what is the premise, right? It's after like 12/21/12, like the whole
it's like the
thing.
world is ending, the apocalypse is happening, and all these
guys are left.
they're all hanging out at
behind.
James Franco's house, and they're trying to survive together.
Is it actually filmed at his house?
I doubt it
I doubt
because
it.
they blow it up pretty early in the trailer. But I think like it's just like all the different celebrities are just showing up because they're in the area.
Yeah.
And Emma Watson like comes in and steals all their food from them. So it looks like it could be really funny. It's definitely not one I've been looking forward to a long time.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew the movie existed until last week when Brad and I saw it in a trailer for it in front of Evil Dead. But it could be a good movie. I'm definitely not willing to dismiss it. Number 3. Brad has Elysium. Number 3. August 9th, directed by Neil Blomkamp, who directed one of the best sci-fi movies that's come out in a long time, District 9, which was an amazing...
I really didn't like it.
Didn't like District 9.
I didn't even get all the way through it. I turned it off before the end.
District 9 to me was truly what sci-fi was about. Like it was a hard concept. It was like, this is what could happen. It was looking at humanity through a different lens.
Yes.
And I thought it was one of the best movies that I saw the year that it came out.
Now, I do know a lot of people who didn't really care for it just because it's so dark.
Yeah, you go
and
into
they
it.
weren't, you go into it just thinking, oh, good, feel good sci-fi.
Yeah, we're gonna
And
blast
it's
some
just
aliens.
So not what they
and-
thought that they.
Oh
just
my
didn't
gosh!
Really
I mean,
like it.
you're essentially watching a sci-fi version of something like Schindler's List or Hotel Rwanda or something.
Exactly.
And it was very emotional, but I think it made us look at things, look at those things in a different way.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you sort of dehumanize it with aliens and then say, okay, now look at what you're doing again, which is what good sci-fi does. It makes us look at things in a different manner. Elysium looks like it has a good plot. Brad showed me this. It was another movie I wasn't aware of. After I looked into it a little bit, I put it on my list. I put it on my list at, I'm counting, at number 7. Brad's got it at 3. I put it on at number 7. It definitely looks like a really good movie. So where did you all register it at?
I actually didn't have it on my list. It probably would be number 11.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually right there. It wasn't on my list either, but it would be 11 or 12.
Okay. Let's jump on to Brad's number 2, Man of Steel. Directed by Zack Snyder, story by Christopher Nolan, who's the executive producer, and David S. Goyer. This is the new Superman movie.
Right.
This is possibly the beginning of the shared DC cinematic universe. This is the movie it looks like it could be for Superman what Batman Begins was
Yeah.
Yes.
to Batman.
Now that's what I'd really like
So,
to see.
I would like to see that.
Where
yes.
do we have it on our lists?
It is actually my number 7.
Number 7.
I don't have a whole lot of loyalty to the character of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Like my my experience with Superman was Smallville. and like the original 1990s, I don't know if they're original, but the 1990s like live action, the live
Lois
action
and Clark.
Yes.
With Dean Cain and
Yeah.
Terry Hatcher.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, like, I don't have a whole lot of loyalty to this character. I liked Superman Returns, and I know a lot of people said they hated that movie.
I liked a lot of parts of it.
It had its moments and its characters.
Yes,
Yeah.
it did.
I really liked that movie, but this is going to be, I think I'm going to end up going into this movie with low expectations, and I'm going to be blown away. So I'm just going to keep my low expectations so that I
you're not
can.
disappointed.
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
not disappointed.
Chris?
I actually had this one at number 3.
Number 3.
Number
okay.
3.
When I first heard there was going to be another Superman movie, my first reaction was kind of like, oh, how cute. They're going to try this again. After Superman Returns. But then I heard that Zack Snyder was involved, and, everything that I kept hearing just, made me more and more interested in it, and, my, hopes for it got better and better. And then when the new trailer came out, I was just like, okay, this blows me away. This looks really, really good. I'm so excited.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, the main reason I'm going to see this movie is because of Kevin Costner.
Okay.
I love him.
Let's.
And
Yeah.
we're gonna see
Waterworld
him
is
as a
like
farmer again,
One
right?
of my favorites.
Hey, to me, this movie. Well, let me say my biggest reason for wanting this movie to be good is that it could launch it's supposed to launch the DC shared universe. Brad always talks about Marvel characters. Brad's more of a Marvel guy, and I'm more of a DC guy. Obviously, my loyalty is like to Batman and the Bat family.
Yeah.
But there's so many DC characters I love. Superman's not my favorite DC character. He's probably not in my top 25 favorite DC characters.
I think most of the time Superman is just he's invincible. Like
Yeah.
DC has addressed that in the New 52. They've really had to work and say, what do we do? What do we do with a character who's so overpowered? They've done some good stories with him. They've really been working things out a bit. This movie looks like it's handled a lot of the problems that Superman Returns had. And
like what?
Okay. First of all, it looks like they're giving Superman a physical villain. Michael Shannon playing General Zod. This is another Kryptonian. This is someone who can go toe to toe with Superman.
Okay.
Lex Luthor can go to Superman, brain against brawn.
Yeah.
But you gotta have somebody eventually that you're like, okay, I want to see some action as well.
Drag-out fight
You want to see both. Here's another Kryptonian, a Kryptonian criminal. Man, you're going to be able to go against this just like this. I think with Zack Snyder is an excellent action director.
Yes, he is.
Watchmen,
Mm-hmm.
perfect comic adaptation of my book. He handled it well. He handles action well in Sucker Punch, in 300.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn of the Dead, fantastic action movie. Even if you don't like zombie movies, and it's got some pretty intense parts, but it's really well handled. He's a good, competent, solid director who always seems to he does some original things, but he also always seems to understand, recognize, and value his source material.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important. You got Christopher Nolan and David S. Goyer behind it. Christopher Nolan just seems like he's executive producer. I know there's been some back and forth about how much involvement he really has with this. I think some people are thinking, is this going to be, the Dark Knight series just with Superman, which is not a bad thing. I mean, I think some people are thinking Christopher Nolan's like really the one behind this. Some people have said no, he really is just truly executive producing it. We don't know. My biggest problem with Superman Returns is Lois Lane.
Really?
Superman can be a pretty dull character if you don't pair him with somebody. And Lois Lane has always been that character that brings out the best in Superman, that brings out his humanity, along with his parents, which they've done good casting for this movie.
Yeah.
Kate Bosworth was the most boring Lois Lane
that's true.
ever.
She was very...
Terry Hatcher was a great Lois Lane.
She was, yeah.
Margot Kidder in the original series was a lovable, funny, vibrant Lois Lane. This movie has Amy Adams. I can't think of a better actress for Lois Lane than Amy Adams.
I'm having a hard time because in my brain, Amy Adams is like Julia and Julia and Enchanted, and I haven't seen her
even
in a role.
Enchanted, you can see some of the flirtiness.
Think of her, Amelia She was Amelia Earhart.
That's true. She
was
in Amelia
Night at the Museum. I just think she's going to do a really good job.
I would like to see.
They've got a strong character. And we've been told by a couple different folks that this is going to launch the DC cinematic universe.
Yeah.
So very likely we could see Henry Cavill continue on as Superman in the Justice League movie that Warner keeps telling us is coming. So we'll see what happens. For me, it's number 2. For me, like the future of DC movies, this is where it depends. Batman was Batman. Christopher Nolan gave us the greatest Batman trilogy that we'll probably ever get. It deserves to stand alone.
Yes, I agree.
It probably needs to stand alone. This is the beginning of something new and exciting. So, number 2 for me, number 2 for Brad, number 7 for Gina, and number 3 for Kristen. Number 1 on Brad's list, Iron Man 3, May 2nd, directed by Shane Black, not directed by Jon Favreau, but Shane Black has helmed plenty of action movies. This looks like he knows what he's doing. Obviously starring Robert Downey Jr., and begins officially the second part of the second phase of the Marvel movie universe.
Yes. Okay.
So, where does Iron Man 3 fall on your list?
Number 1, baby.
Number 1. Everybody's number 1 except me.
Yeah.
I've got it at number 3.
Wow. What was your number 2?
My number 2 is Man of Steel.
Okay.
My number 1 is...
Wow, really? You're more excited about Man of Steel than
Absolutely.
Iron Man 3?
Everything for me, DC rides on Man of Steel.
Okay,
I'm
that's
so
true.
pumped about it. Love Zack Snyder. Love Christopher Nolan. Love DC. Even though I don't really care much about Superman, it's got to be good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hoping it's good.
I gotcha.
This looks great. Iron Man 3 would be the movie most likely that I'm excited for it. I think I would be a little more excited if they would have... I know Brad was telling me this is a different Iron Man movie, but if they would have put an AC/DC song in the trailer, or they make one that has an AC/DC song, I think that would have got me pumped up, because I still can't disassociate the song Shoot to Thrill with Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
Always associate with that. So you guys got number 1. Why?
The first 2 have just been so good. I mean, there's no reason to assume this one's gonna let me down,
Okay, that's a good point.
And I think out of all of these, there are a lot of action films coming out this summer. And I think out of all of them, he is the character that I can relate to the most. I know him well.
Because you're a genius, billionaire, millionaire, genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist?
Not playboy, playgirl.
Who's a recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
Well, not in these movies yet. Not in these movies yet.
He's the character that I know best.
Okay.
I know him best. I've been with him for 3 movies now. Okay, Jerry, stop laughing.
It's just funny, it's like you're really
I know him.
Tony and me.
Oh,
like Elf. You're gonna be in the theater, Iron Man pops up, Gia's yelling, I know him! Someone's
Yeah.
gonna have to go file an
But
involuntary commitment on Gina.
He's
All right.
he's a character that I know and I understand. I know his background. I know how he reacts
And
to things.
he's growing. And we've
he's
seen him for
growing.
we've seen him for 3 full movies, if we count
Yes.
Avengers.
Yes.
Which I think
And
we should.
He's been in other things as well. I mean, we've seen
Uh-huh.
bits and pieces of him in, well, if you haven't seen Incredible Hulk, he's Incredible
Oh,
Hulk.
I haven't seen that one.
Mhm.
That's one of the few of the Marvel
Okay.
movies that I haven't seen.
So you're right, and we've seen this character arc. We've really seen it coming to
Yes.
something that looks very serious, something that even maybe Tony Stark is going to have a hard time.
Well, we're
Dealing
bringing
with.
in his humanity.
And Mandarin,
Yes.
Mandarin, Ben Kingsley,
Or as Brad Bell likes to say,
the
Mandarin.
Mandarin. Mandarin. I think Ben Kingsley's role as Mandarin is going to be one of those defining characters of this summer.
You think it's going to
Yes.
be on the same level as, like, oh, now I can't, his name, like, the Joker,
Heath
Heath
Ledger?
Ledger's Joker? Because
I don't
like,
know.
that was a very,
That
like,
is
That's hard to
definitely
beat.
one of those. I mean, we're talking about he got, Academy Award
yeah.
for that role,
Mhm.
posthumous, but he still got it and,
And
earned
he
it.
deserved it.
Yes,
Absolutely. Brad was telling kind of the anecdotal story that they said the day after his first shoot that everybody just showed
Yep.
up and clapped for him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Kingsley is a well-known, well-respected actor, and I'm excited to see what he does
What
with
other
this
things
character.
has he been in?
Oh my gosh. I'm just going to pull up his Wikipedia
Yeah,
because
just pull it
I wouldn't
up.
even know where to start.
Yeah,
Because
seriously.
and you listeners probably have figured this out by now, but my brain doesn't hold on to people's names. I hold on to characters and to plot and to story and to dialogue, but I cannot seem to remember, like, actors' names and directors' names. So, I always have to ask, what has this person been in that I know him from?
He played Gandhi. In the film Gandhi, won the Academy Award to play Gandhi.
Yeah, I didn't
I mean,
see
that's huge.
That was 1982,
Yeah.
so that's been a little while.
it.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
I was not born.
But I
yet.
mean, surely you didn't watch Gandhi in school? Like, I
No,
mean, we always watched
uh-uh.
Gandhi.
If I did,
Are you
I was
kidding me?
pretty
We're
young
not allowed to
still.
watch movies in school. Didn't you
Oh
know
my
that?
goodness, really?
Oh yeah, you have to
Oh,
go
we have
through
to
a
watch
huge process. Like,
Oh man,
movies in.
he was
yeah.
in Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Haven't seen that one.
I mean, he's got hundreds of them. I'm skipping over tons of them, but
Is that the Sweeney? Oh no, that's the
no, he was in a
1998.
different one. He
Mhm.
was in Sexy Beast. He was in Frank the Whole Story. He's in AI.
Yeah. she
Tuck
is in
Everlasting,
AI.
House of Sand and Fog. I know he won a lot
What
of
was he in
awards.
Tuck Everlasting?
The
A
Man in the
in the
Yellow
yellow
Suit.
Like, I remember that
Yeah, I
character.
don't remember that character either.
I mean, he's
Well,
been,
so this might be a new defining
Yeah.
role for him. For
been
me.
in so many movies. I mean,
For
look,
you.
he has his own.
Yeah.
He has his own page on Wikipedia just for his filmography. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that's how extensive it is.
Yeah.
So, okay, so number 1 for everybody except me was Iron Man 3.
Yep.
All right, well, let's go back and talk about what was left off your list. Kristen, what didn't Brad put on his list that you have on your list?
I had on Now You See Me. I had that as number 5. I thought that just looks just very exciting, very interesting.
Tell us a
very
little about
action-packed.
Now You See Me.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything about this one.
I'm probably not the best person to give a little blurb about it. I do know it's about a group of con artists.
Oh, that's the magic
Yes.
one.
Yes.
Who are
Oh
magicians.
my gosh! If
Yes.
I had remembered that, that's probably
I
would have
believe
been.
if I
on my
remember, I've
list,
seen
too.
I've seen the preview once, and it stuck. It stuck
Yeah.
with me, and I
Yeah.
was make quite a
Definitely.
Let's think about,
It's
I mean,
really
the cast
cool.
here. Jesse Eisenberg,
Yep.
Mark Ruffalo,
Yeah.
Yes.
Love him. Love
I
him.
know,
Love
I
him.
know.
who was one of those actors that I always just thought he was so dull.
I first saw
Until
him.
he
and
played
then
the
I
Hulk.
saw him as Bruce Banner. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, and now I have a new
worked.
appreciation
That
for
worked
him.
so
I
well
first
for
saw
him.
him in 13 Going on 30.
Same here.
And I
Okay.
completely swooned over him. I thought he was so cute.
Woody Harrelson is in the movie.
Yep.
Isla
Very
Fisher,
exciting.
Melanie Laurent, Morgan Freeman, Michael
Of course,
Caine,
any film
Uh-huh.
with Morgan Freeman's gonna
And
be
Michael
it.
Caine.
Oh.
and then
yes.
I don't know who he plays, but Elias Koteas, Casey Jones, baby.
Mhm.
Casey Jones from
That
the
is
original Teenage
exciting.
Mutant Ninja Turtle
Original.
movies. He was Casey Jones. We got some movies to
Oh,
watch.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
this
we do.
looks great. Once again, con artists that are magicians sounds like a really unique, interesting
Yes,
plot.
it does.
Brad always goes on about how there's no unique movies. This sounds like a
It
really
does sound like it's
interesting, unique movie. I don't think it's based off anything. Directed by Louis Leterrier. Probably butchering that, but Louis Leterrier.
Look
So,
closer, because the closer you look, the less you see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks great.
I probably just butchered that
Another
line.
magician movie.
It's okay.
Another magician movie. We've always had
Yep.
already had the Incredible Wonderstone.
I'm
But a
betting
couple
this one's
years
gonna be a
ago,
lot better.
we had The Prestige
Yes.
and The
And The
Illusionist
Illusionist.
both come
Yeah.
out at the
See,
same time.
There you go again. Someone has a good idea, and it's taken.
But you know what? Unique ideas. You wonder where that comes from. Like maybe if someone had just written a draft of something at one point and then
Yeah.
kind of
Send
split
it out
it.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know. So I always like to call it the Volcano Dante's Peak syndrome,
Yes.
because that was the first place I ever really saw that happen.
It
Was
was right
you had
around that
two
time.
volcano movies. I mean, okay, alien invasion movies. Alien invasions happen all the time.
Yeah.
But you had two movies about volcanoes in the same summer.
And
What?
Was it the summer?
What?
Was it the summer before that?
No.
That it was Armageddon.
No, the
It
next
was
year,
the next year.
was
It was
Armageddon
and
Deep Impact. Yeah.
Yeah, after 2
Okay.
years of that, I was like, gee, something's up.
So
Yeah.
Kristen has Now You See Me on her list.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Sounds
that's a
good.
great
What
one.
else do you have that we've
I have
missed?
After Earth
After
Yes!
Earth.
on my
That one
list.
is my
You have that at
number 3.
7.
Number really?
Yes.
Okay.
See, I love Will Smith though, and I just
I
his-
do. I love Will Smith.
His movies are so
I'm
great.
not sure I love him as much as you do.
And this just looked, from the trailer, I couldn't tell. Like, it really seemed like it was more about Jaden, kind of like becoming a man
Mm-hmm.
I
on
definitely
this
wondered
earth,
about that, yeah.
and not so much like a father-son sort of we're gonna survive together. It looked, because every time you saw Will Smith, he was like inside the crashed ship. So I'm wondering, does Will Smith kind of die early on in the
Yeah.
film after telling Jaden all these things, and then Jaden has to go out and survive on his own?
I have been really excited about this movie. It looks really good. Will Smith's a good actor. Everything
Yes.
I've seen about Jaden Smith is that
Well, he was great in Karate Kid.
he's a good actor. I have one hesitation about this movie. It is co-written, produced, and directed by M. Night Shyamalan.
Which is why it is down to number 7. on
He
my
has
list.
done some great things in the past. Unbreakable was arguably his best movie.
Mhm.
Sixth Sense was good.
Mhm.
Signs was good.
Yeah.
Lady in the Water was
After that, it started.
okay.
I
a
don't
little
even think I
downhill.
finished that film.
What
It
was
was
the one?
okay.
The Village was
Village.
disappointing.
Really? I've heard lots of people say
Oh.
that's one of their favorite
Oh.
films.
He saw it a second time and said
And
there
it
were
was
just
it
holes
falls
everywhere.
apart. It just is not an exciting movie to watch.
Is it one
again.
of those where you just can't think while you're watching it? Because if you think about it, then
No.
it
The first
unravels?
time it's a very tense movie. The
Yeah.
second time you're like,
Mm,
that's it.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those that
Yeah, it
you
is
can
a
only
little-
watch it once.
yeah. What was the
The,
name?
the shock in it.
What was
is
the
only
name
good
for that
once, I
term
think.
in Humbug? It's a Fiji mermaid, in a sense.
What?
In the X-Files episode Humbug, the whole Fiji mermaid thing. That it's just something that's crafted so it looks good, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wait a
I
minute.
don't remember what they.
Okay, remember the exhibit that Mulder
I
goes
do,
into?
I do, but I don't remember what they said.
Okay,
about it.
never mind. So,
Fail.
but I'm interested.
I'm only
interested.
in season 1 so
I have
far.
always
haven't rewatched it there.
I have always thought that M. Night Shyamalan would be a very good director
hmm
if he directed things that other people wrote.
Yeah.
He directed things that other people wrote because he's a very good director. He's a very proficient director. I always think he gets a good performances out of
Yes,
his
he
actors.
does.
I can't think of anything where he hasn't got a good performance.
But Will Smith is really good about picking movies that he really likes.
Yeah.
Now he did
That is
say
a good
early
point.
on in his career he did just do
Well,
he
and-
thought Men in Black, the first one, was going to be a stepping stone movie. He didn't think it was going to be as big a hit as
Propelled-
it was.
yeah, propel him
So he
to
was like,
stardom.
I'm just doing this because
But you're
I
right.
want to get my career going.
He doesn't just make movies all the time that I can't think of many Will Smith movies. I know I was bashing I Am Legend earlier, but in and of itself,
Yeah,
I Am
it's a
Legend is a
good
good
film.
movie.
It
Yeah.
is.
It was not a good adaptation of the Richard Matheson novel, but
on
it's
its
a
own.
good movie in and of itself.
Yeah.
And I always think he does do that. Good movies, good performances.
Yeah.
So, okay, After Earth. I'm excited for it as well. NECA has shown some pictures of their figure. I think the kid's name is Kai. Is that right?
I don't remember.
Kitai. It's
Okay.
Jaden Smith's character. So we'll see. I would actually like a Will Smith figure because the last
Yeah.
figure of him made was for Men in Black, and it was like, kind of small and didn't really
Yeah.
look like him. But this one doesn't have the mustache, so I don't know. I always think of Will Smith with a mustache.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that from Fresh
Really?
Prince?
Didn't he have it in like everything he's ever made? Men in Black,
I
he
know.
always has a mustache.
Does he?
Does he?
Well, like he's got some. Yeah, he's got the mustache.
I can't remember.
Because that was a big thing. Yeah, he's
I
got a
don't
mustache.
remember. Okay. Anyways, yes, you can have some water. Thanks for asking.
I had one more on my list. I had 300 Rise of an Empire. I had that as number 8.
See, I didn't see the first 300.
Oh, you're missing out.
I remember we were in Nashville, living in Nashville when it came out, and we were trying to see it at the IMAX theater, and it was
Couldn't
sold
get
out
in.
for days.
Yeah.
Is this the one that everybody's like, this
It's
is
Sparta!
Sparta?
Yeah. You're talking,
That's
Gina,
the
you would
one.
love it. I mean,
You really
You think
would.
so?
Gerard Butler, Michael Fassbender, all these guys run around,
half naked.
abs everywhere.
Abs
So,
yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. So, good, I'm interested. It's not directed by
At
Zack
all?
Snyder.
Yeah.
It's produced by Zack
Yeah.
Snyder. It will not have Gerard Butler in it. It's
Oh,
actually,
boo.
but it's not a sequel, and it's not a prequel. It's looking at the Battle of Thermopylae,
Okay.
and everything that happens from a different perspective. It's kind of looking more at like some of the sea battle that took place and things. So kind of think of it as, like if you're watching a World War II movie, here's one that takes place in Europe, one that takes place in Japan.
Okay.
If 300 was Europe, this one's the
Gotcha.
the Pacific
Yeah.
Pacific theater. So interesting. I'm interested to see it. I can't imagine it being a not good movie because 300 was good because it was just very primal
Yes.
and exciting. And
Did it have a lot of homosexuality in it?
no, it had
No.
none. That's kind
That's
of
really surprising.
that's kind of the
Well,
whole.
it is.
That was actually a big controversy.
Yeah.
Because the Spartans did.
Yeah, it was
But-
very much a part of
historically
their.
accurate
But-
for that aspect.
Yeah.
In Frank Miller's book 300, they are always making fun of the other Greeks for being boy lovers and things like that. It's like, but it's sort of a, I don't know what you might call it, idealized look. I don't know, idealized is not the right word, but it's sort of a manly man look at this
Yeah.
thing. I
Yeah.
mean, it's very history meets fantasy in
Yeah,
a sense.
it is.
Yeah, I'd
I mean,
say-
the Persians are portrayed as being very monstrous, often almost mutant-like and stuff. But it's one of those things where you just have to watch it. When I first saw 300, I thought it was the closest thing to a living comic book I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, even Zack Snyder's direction just made things just look like they were pages taken right out of the book.
Yeah, I
Beautifully
believe
shot
some of
movie.
some of the shots are even like line up perfectly
Absolutely.
with some of the.
I did not have it on my list. I'm excited for it, but it didn't make my top 10. But we can tell right now, there's a lot of movies coming out.
Yes,
Yeah.
there are.
Okay? Anything else that you had?
That was everything on my list.
And Gina didn't have 300 on hers.
I did not.
Gina,
no.
tell us what you've got on your list.
Okay. Well, my number 10 was the Lone Ranger.
Okay.
And I just had that because this is kind of like an iconic story from like my parents. Like they've talked about it, and I don't know how I feel about Johnny Depp playing
Tonto?
Tonto. Yes.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of one of those people where let's get a Native American playing
Yeah.
a Native American role.
Yeah.
You know, like Johnny Depp is, yeah, he's a great facial
Yeah.
actor. Yeah, he's good at playing quirky roles. But I mean, Johnny Depp. Yeah, I just thought I said his name wrong. Johnny Depp is one of those characters where I feel like he kind of plays the same character in every movie he makes. Now, given there are some like Sweeney Todd and Edward Scissorhands, where obviously, or what's the Secret Window?
Oh, yes, Secret Window. Yeah.
Where he's obviously playing very different characters.
Yeah.
But you've got Pirates of the Caribbean, and I feel like there's one scene in the trailer where he's running on the rooftop of the train, and it's a very Jack Sparrow run.
Yeah. Well, directed by Gore Verbinski, who directed... this is directed by Gore Verbinski, who directed the 3 Pirates of the Caribbean movies, the first 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So
there really should have only been one.
Yeah, same director. I'm interested to see it. I'm interested to see a Western because we haven't seen a lot of Westerns
I think
lately.
the last one was like Aliens versus Cowboys.
Which
or
was
Cowboys
a great
and
movie.
Aliens.
It was a very
It was
good
a
movie. I'm excited to see this movie. I'll probably see it. I've had my hesitations about it, but I don't have a lot of expectation for it, so we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, my number 9 was Despicable Me 2.
That was almost on my list.
Yeah, well,
That
see,
one,
you already know from earlier in the podcast that I love family films. So, I actually have a couple family films on here, and I loved Despicable Me 1. I mean, I'm a daddy's girl, so, you know, him being the evil, you know, the Mr. Evil kind of character, and he falls in love with these 3 little girls, you know, like, it touched my heart. So I'm really excited about Despicable Me. My number 8 was Monsters University.
That almost made my list, too.
Which looks really cute, really good. Monsters, Inc. was on the top of my list for a really long time. I kind of I overwatched it, and so I got burned out on it. But this looks really cool because it's kind of like how Mike Wazowski and Sully begin. Like, they start out as rivals because they're both majoring in... They want to be scarers, and so they're both majoring in scaring, I guess. And so the whole film is kind of about their rivalry where Sully's like, I'm the best scarer that ever will be, and there's no way that you little Mike Wazowski can be better than me. And, you know, Mike Wazowski is like this nerdy little, he's got his retainer in his mouth, and he's like, I'm going to be the best scarer there ever was. So that looks like it's going to be really good. Disney's Planes is my number 6. My number 7 was Man of Steel, and we've already talked about that.
I need to watch the trailer for Planes.
It looks really good. Like,
Monsters, Inc. is one of my, probably in my top 5 Pixar movies.
Yeah.
I think it's probably in my top 5. So I'm interested. This is definitely one of the properties that I don't feel like it's gonna, you know, it wouldn't have to be forced to do a sequel or prequel of.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of my favorite Pixar movies, I don't feel like they could do a sequel or prequel that would really mean anything. Like Up. Up's my favorite Pixar movie, and I don't think you could do a prequel or sequel that would really add anything. Ratatouille, Brave, I just don't think it would add anything. Monsters Incorporated.
No, see, I could see something happening with Brave.
Maybe where Merida's in charge or something, where she becomes like the lady, or, you know, I would say more like the ruler role.
The queen.
Okay, the queen. I could see that. But I think this would be a much easier thing of fitting something else on. Sounds good.
Well, Planes is kind of like, we're in the same universe as Cars, but it's a completely different, like, the trailer even says the world above the Cars or something like that. So we're like seeing the same sort of world, but we're focusing on an aerial sort of aspect to it. And we've seen things like the helicopter at the end of Cars 1. You know, so we've seen some aviation.
So it's in the same universe.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't like Cars much. I mean, Cars was not a bad movie at all.
Cars.
I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's like...
I even loved the second one, and lots of people said they hated the second one.
Okay. I haven't seen the second one
was
yet.
put out really just for
more
marketing.
More Mater.
And,
I've kind of heard them talk about that. Okay, well, we'll see. I mean, you know, it's interesting. Is it done by Pixar? Is Planes done by Pixar? So they've got 2 movies coming out this summer.
I think. I mean, it says Disney Planes.
Yeah.
I don't know if Pixar is doing it or not, but I wouldn't. Well, I mean, it's a Pixar property. Like, I don't know why they wouldn't be involved
in some way.
True. And I mean, the animation looks exactly like Cars. So just applied to airplanes.
I will say that if Pixar wanted to make a movie that was about like the life of Doug, the talking dog, I'd watch it. I would
You
watch
definitely
that.
watch that.
I would watch that. Every minute of it that they made. Yeah.
Was that a Nickelodeon show?
Doug, the dog
Doug
from
from
Up
Up.
that talks.
Oh!
Hi there. My name is Doug.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
okay.
love that. That's like my favorite animated, one of my favorite animated characters.
He
is Doug.
is. Yeah,
Love
he's
him.
great.
Love him.
Yeah.
So, okay, go on, Gina. I'm all over the
and-
place.
So my number 5 was The Great Gatsby. I am so excited about this movie because I loved the book, The Great Gatsby. It kind of, I don't know, I need to reread it before I go and see it to see how close they are going to... Jerry, pay attention.
Sorry, I'm trying to find it on my shelf.
Oh,
it's
really?
in the other room. It's in the other room.
Okay. But to see how close, because in the trailer, there are some things that happen in the trailer where I'm like, gosh, I don't remember this being in the book. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering how closely they're going to stick to what's in the book.
It looks like an interpretation of the book.
And it has a fantastic Florence and the Machine song in it, and I love her.
It's directed by
So-
Baz Luhrmann, who directed Moulin Rouge and
Okay.
and something else.
It does have a very Moulin Rouge-y kind of
Yeah,
feel
well,
to
Baz
it.
And that
Luhrmann-
piques my interest a bit.
Yeah.
more.
Baz
That makes-
Luhrmann directed it, so it could be good, it could be obnoxious. I don't know yet.
We don't want to have any elephant love medleys bursting out.
I
in the
think
middle.
No.
I think Leonardo DiCaprio will be really good in it.
I
Oh,
just
I'm
think
sure.
he's a great actor.
He
He
is a
is.
better. I mean, not that he ever was a bad actor.
But
He
he's
definitely
gotten
has
better.
gotten-
I think
Yes.
he not only is he a good actor, he picks good roles.
Yes.
Yeah,
He
Yes.
picks
he's
really.
found what he's good at.
Yeah.
He's,
I
yeah.
honestly, the movie that I'm like ashamed that I haven't seen yet is Django Unchained.
Oh, I haven't
Same
seen
here.
And
that
I
one either.
probably, as soon as I get a chance, I'm gonna go out and just buy it.
Yeah.
Because I think I've
Heard
seen
so many
every
good
Quentin
things.
Tarantino movie in theaters for years. Like ever since I probably was allowed to see them in theaters, I've seen them in theaters, and I missed it.
See,
Yeah.
now I think my favorite DiCaprio movie is Catch Me If You Can.
That was a very
loved
interesting
that
movie.
And I loved his character in that movie because it was so like,
That was a pretty good movie.
oh, I loved it.
What was the one that I liked it in Shutter Island. That
Yeah,
was a
that
good
was
movie.
good.
I was too
Wasn't one of his
scared
best.
to see that one.
It's not really a horror
It's not
movie.
really that-
It's more of
It's a
a
little creepy at
crime
times,
drama,
but it's
thriller.
pretty good.
So okay, so
You'd be
you've
fine.
got Great Gatsby.
Yes.
One time this is a complete aside, I was reading this guy was talking and he did this whole thing about, he compared the Great Gatsby with Jabba the Hutt. Kind of this whole thing about, yeah. It was-
How did he make that
Oh, it was
connection?
interesting. So
I'm
It-
sure it
this
had
was-
to have been.
this was like 1997 on probably like a GeoCities Star Wars board or something, So I was probably like in 7th grade. So,
Hmm.
all right. Anything
and
else?
then the only other one was After Earth. So
Which we talked
Yeah, which
about.
I talked
Okay.
about, so.
yeah.
All right. Well, I have 2 that y'all haven't brought up. The first one actually comes pretty high on, well, not pretty high on my list, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it's right there at 5. It's called The Purge. It's directed by James DeMonaco, has Ethan Hawke and Lena Headey in it. Comes out May 31st. And the trailer, starts off playing, I can't remember if it's the Star Spangled Banner or it's a patriotic melody.
Sounds like the beginning of Zombieland.
I just can't remember what it's playing, and it talks about like unemployment's less than 1%. Crime is there's virtually no crime. All these things, the United States is like the most prosperous it's ever been, and it's because one night a year, all hospitals shut down, all law enforcement shuts down, all fire departments shut down, all laws are suspended, and people are allowed to do whatever they want with no repercussion.
Oh my god.
And the idea is, it's this very dystopian idea, but that it creates a utopian society. If for one night a year you let people get out all their rage, all their anger, all their
Yeesh.
grudges, and then
Mhm.
you just go on as if nothing happened.
Yeah.
This is about a family trying to explain to their kids why the purge is a good thing. That's what they call it. Why it's important. The kids just aren't understanding this. And on the night of the purge, there's a group of people who go around in masks, which Brad and I immediately were like, oh, they look like the Court of Owls from the Scott Snyder Batman series. They've picked this one guy, and they've decided this is the guy we're just going to kill tonight. And this guy is running towards this family's house, which has been fortified and secured and everything. And the kids let him inside to hide him. And so the family is surviving this assault. So it looks like a really tense movie, but it also looks like it does, kind of that dystopian look at, society, kind of like something like The Lottery, or something that really asks you to think about, like, it really prompts you to think about what would people do if they really had this night where we said there were no laws, and really ask you to think. I'm excited about it.
I don't think it would last for just one night. I think we'd go into utter chaos.
So,
and it would be impossible to rein back in.
12 hours, and then you'd have, all government forces and everything just, like, kind of swarm on everything, and, it's interesting. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but once again, it's one of those movies that looks like it'll kind of, just ask you to think about something and look at something a little differently. The last one is a movie that I don't think is going to ask us to think at all. I had to throw a comedy on there. There's been one comedy trailer that's made me laugh more than any of them, and it's The Internship. The Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson comedy. Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson were big when I was in, high school and college, and I don't think there's any two guys that can carry on better just meaningless banter between the two of them than Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson. Maybe if you threw Ben Stiller in there, I think he can speak the same language as those guys.
Yeah.
But both of them are just, they're fast talkers, and I mean, the movie looks ridiculous. They're two guys that get an internship at Google when everybody else are like, young, up and coming, geniuses and things like that. And here's these two guys. But it looks funny. It looks like one of those movies that, I want to go see. If I want to see a comedy this summer,
that's the one.
That's probably the one that I would pick.
This Is the End?
Oh, very much over This Is the End. Brad and I were talking about the comedy generations. This Is the End, or the Apatow Mafia.
I was in that conversation too.
Okay, you were here. Sorry, I couldn't
that
remember.
was last week's podcast.
I couldn't remember if you were there last week. So
Thanks.
I was kind of more there in that group of what they call the frat pack. Will Ferrell, Owen Wilson, Vince Vaughn. I mean, that was
Stiller.
I mean, I think those guys are much funnier than these other guys, but it's okay. That's what I would pick. So it looked like everybody had a couple differences, but for the most part, we had pretty similar things, just in different places on our list. If you're listening and you want to tell us your top 10 movies that you're looking forward to, go ahead and send us an email at thepicreview@gmail.com. So I don't have anything else to talk about. Does anybody else have anything to bring to the table?
No. I don't think so.
All right. Well, we will see everyone next week here for our next episode, and we wish you good journey.
Jerry,
yes.
Before we go, tell us what are you going to be doing in the next week or so? What more can we get from you?
Oh, what more can you get from me? Well, I'm going to be continuing to work on my reviews. You can find all my reviews at thepicreview.com. Also, check out my Flickr account, www.flickr.com/photos/barbecue17.
Okay.
Gina, where do we find your information?
I'm going to be having a couple more reviews up on the website as well at thepicreview.com. Got some interesting stuff coming down the pike as to a Star Wars game that I'm developing, and you'll see more about that in the future. Also, I think we're gonna do something new, right, on the blog about getting to know us a little bit better.
Absolutely.
So be looking for that. You'll kind of like our introduction, sort of. This is who we are, sort of thing.
Gina, let's go ahead and do your From Here to HeroCon too, if you'd like.
Okay, so I know it's been a couple of weeks since we've done this, and I apologize for that. But I believe the first week keyword was metal. And the second week's keyword was chain. This week's word, I'm going to give you kind of a fairly decent hint here. It's handgun. So
All right.
that is this week's.
And for clarification, you have no criminal intent.
No.
Okay,
no,
we're just putting that out there. Just throwing it out there.
No.
All right.
So metal, chain, handgun.
Kristen doesn't really put anything on the Epic Review, but Kristen, what will you probably be proofreading this week?
Well, I don't know, Jerry. What will I be proofreading this week?
Probably some more things that I'm putting on there. Thanks a lot for tuning in to the Confirmed Epic Podcast, the official podcast of the epicreview.com, and we'll see you at the movies.